Hello, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. If you're viewing this as a webcast, you'll also notice that it's a bit unusual today in the sense that the person that I'm interviewing is actually in the same room as me, is sitting on the same sofa as me. Isn't that amazing? Anyway, moving on. Today, as always, is an exciting day for me because I get to speak to someone whose work I really respect and love, and a person that I get on well with and as known to me from the past. And today, Bec Dilizia joins us. Well, first of all, thanks for joining us, Bec.
Thank you for having me, JP.
And we're going to be talking all things energy. But what I love about Bec's work is she's blended the energy work with the movement work, and we're going to look at that as time goes on. Now, Bec's an international presenter, retreat organizer, but she also, well, facilitator, I should say, but also still works with clients, and is this kind of multifaceted approach to the way I would call you a practitioner rather than a trainer. So she blends so many different elements into delivering a session that I don't know that we could, other than holistic, I don't think we can actually put a label on the nature of the sessions that you do anymore. Again, which excites me. So I guess what we should first share with everyone is tell the lovely folks out there, like, a little bit about your journey, because you qualified as an exercise physiologist, but it's kind of not really what you are in any way anymore, almost. But yeah, go from there.
Okay. Yeah, I qualified as an exercise physiologist in 1999, having always had a huge love of movement and having it been such a huge part of my world with competitive sport, for example. From there, I guess my personal health journey sort of started to come into play. So I continued on to work on some mine sites up the north of WA for a while. I ended up in Sydney and began working as a personal trainer in a gym over there, which I loved. My health journey kind of got in the way for a while after that, and I ended up going to a desk job doing some case management work. And then post having my two boys, I started to make my way back towards movement, which was always my true love. I guess I found you in 2014 when I was at quite a low point in terms of my health. I had my second child was only a year old, so I was very sleep deprived and my body was not very happy with me at that point in time. So then from there, I enjoyed everything that you were teaching me about fascial movement and pretty much adopted that and went from there.
Yeah. It's really difficult to do this without doing the personal journey part. I've just realized, you have these background questions that you want to ask someone, and then really the personal journey, and what you've been through there is so intimately linked with where you find yourself now. I feel like we're going to have to cover that before we go any further with the journey of you being in your kind of your most contemporary phase. So yeah, I remember that first day I met you, and you looked, I don't know, I feel like you were a shell of who you are now. And no offense to your previous self, but you were a kind of a walking shadow of the person that I know today. And I know chronic fatigue syndrome is part of that, but you were carrying a whole heap of different symptoms at the time. So maybe do the story of that, and we'll come back to your actual professional journey.
Okay, so from when I met you, so yes, I was very sleep deprived with two small children at home. I had at that point I'd already developed a thyroid issue, so I was struggling with that. And then a whole bunch of food intolerance, IBS type issues started to come into play. So I was also dealing with that.
And you're not a big person, so I think that was the thing that I really noticed, was that you were frail, like you looked frail.
I was also dealing with parasites, and I'm about 170 centimeters tall. And when I was dealing with the parasites, I went down to about 53 kilos. Not intentionally.
No.
My body just couldn't hold any more weight at that point in time. So yeah, I was not in good shape
No.
when I met you.
Right. So you've got all of that going on, and really, the interesting stuff that's really relevant for today is what you went about doing, because the people that you consulted weren't a great deal of help to you, as in
No,
they were helpful, but they didn't bring the change that you needed.
that's right. Chronic fatigue syndrome is still relatively an unknown to the traditional allopathic medical world. There's no known cure. There's a list of symptoms that you need to meet, so there's no diagnostic test. It's still very much an unknown. So I went on a bit of a journey finding my own answers over time, to get myself back to myself, basically.
Now, obviously, I know that the movement style that I tend to teach really fitted with you, but then there was a whole heap of spin-offs from that, really. So now, I know we're going to talk about energy stuff today, but you've got the energy stuff, but what other things did that bring into your realm? Because I wasn't even using essential oils until I met you, pretty much. Like, by the way, just to put on record, I've learned as much from Bec as she's learned from me. Like, it's been like she drew on my knowledge for a while, and then I found out all this stuff that she'd been personally researching and starting to use with her clients. And then since then, it's been more the other way around. I feel like I'm learning more from you in recent years than the other way around. So anyway, so carry on. So there's other stuff. So there's the energy stuff, which we will get onto, because that's what everyone's here to listen to. But what else came in the mix in all that? Because I feel like there's a lot.
So I have a beautiful friend, Leanne, who introduced me to essential oils. She'd been on her own journey through some very big health challenges and had found them to be really, really helpful. So essential oils were definitely in the mix. I started to explore with other types of modalities to address different levels of my being. So I started to explore EFT, or emotional freedom technique, which is a technique where you tap on acupressure points while reciting some statements, so psychology-based statements that you've constructed specifically around issues that you're having. I learned animal flow in those early days, and that was huge. I took a dive into meditation. Having never meditated before, that was actually sparked by one of the courses I did with yourself and Corinne Austin.
That's it, yeah.
I did a next level course, covering everything from fascia to the vagus nerve to lymphatic system, but it was also very much about exploring the whole being, so authenticity and looking at the different layers. And so that inspired me to start meditating, and then meditation brought so many things to my world. It changed my physical body. So my animal flow that I'd been doing for about 2 years completely shifted when I started meditating.
Yes, I mean, there's a huge hint just there as to where we're going. Like, it's something that you can't see and touch. Like a kind of a spiritual practice almost. Suddenly, your physical body's operating completely differently.
Yeah, and when I was on my journey, I intentionally only introduced one thing at a time, so I could very clearly see what was changing. And meditation was, I invested in it. It was probably about 45 minutes to an hour, morning and night. So
that's it. You were fanatical in the early days.
I went in hard because I really wanted to see what change it could bring for me.
All right.
And it was also meditation that brought me the concept of Where Your Attention Goes, Your Energy Flows by Dr. Joe Dispenza. So really starting to, instead of getting dragged along by my life, I started to set intentions and set a pathway of where I actually wanted to go. So that was a huge shift for me as well.
So was meditation, then you found Dr. Joe, or when you looked at meditation, you found Dr. Joe and you did it his style? How did that work?
No, I found Dr. Joe. Okay. It kind of came through the different channels around me. Everyone kept saying his name, and I was like, right, I'm going to start there because it seems like a really good place to start.
Okay, so that's Dr. Joe Dispenza, just to repeat that, just in case people haven't heard or have never really looked at it. he's got a very scientific approach to all of that too, which for the science, the science nerds out there, you'll love his approach to well, pretty much all things, because he's heavy science based. Now and something else I caught, and another disease I caught from you was ocean immersion. When did the ocean immersion come in? Because you had them, I feel like it was a similar time to the meditation.
It was that was all inspired by the course I did with you guys. So I had always been an ocean girl growing up in Perth, but it was pretty much just in the warmer weather.
Yeah.
But there was something about the mental discipline of going through the winter. I don't know what it was. I just decided, right, I'm going to now start going every day. And I did. And that delivered a whole range of things as well, I think.
And I'll point out that, we're in Perth, Australia. So we get wild weather, which makes ocean immersion difficult some days in the winter, but we don't really get ocean temperatures like you would in other parts of the world. Our low point is 17 degrees Celsius in the depths of winter, like August kind of time. You might see that. So water temperature isn't really the challenge, but the wildness of the weather can be, right?
And just the mental discipline of just going, some days you might not necessarily think you feel like going, but it's that, no, I'm doing this. This is part of my ritual, my routine. And I later, of course, discovered that salt water is amazing for clearing your energy. So it sort of came in before I started working with energy. But, I don't think these things happen by chance, by coincidence.
I think the thing that I realized, I did it. As you know, I did a 365-day challenge myself, just because I wanted to see if it's possible to get yourself fully under the water every day for a year, and which I managed 367 days straight, just in case you're wondering, everyone. And you can't, whatever state you go into the water, whether it's happy, sad, frustrated, calm, you come out better. So if you go in happy, you come out happier. You go in sad, you definitely have that. There's an element of relief as a result of that. There is something about connecting with nature, and in this case, ocean fully. They talk about nature immersion. You can't get better than that. There's something about that gives you something. And I can't really describe it beyond you feel better on the way out than you did on the way in,
It's supposed to balance your voltage. So if you're a bit low, it's supposed to boost you. And if you're a bit too high, it's supposed to sort of balance
levels you out.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's literal earthing in a way.
Yes.
We'll call it watering. Okay. So by now, people who are listening, you probably realized that there's a whole heap caught up with where you are now in your own journey, and you have gone, just to give people an update, you now no longer are a chronic fatigue syndrome person.
I'm absolutely right? Cured. Yeah,
you are. And the stuff that you've done with your gut, which has been that's been a long journey for you.
Yeah,
you are pretty much at the other end of that journey now as well. Just describe the only things that you could eat 10 years ago. And then
that was not fun. That was around the time that I met you. I was eating pretty much beef, chicken, fish, lamb, 6 green vegetables, and olive oil and coconut oil, and that was it.
So it wasn't many and varied like your life is now.
No.
So yeah, I just wanted to give people a flavor of the background and the stuff that you've done, and the amount of discipline really that you've had to show in order to become healthy again, the amount of effort that you've put in. So now I can reverse back and go, all right then, professional journey.
Okay.
You've got all of that in the background. You've done the exercise phys thing. You've worked as a personal trainer in a gym. Then you've gone from Sydney back home to Perth.
Yes.
And then about a year after the birth of your second child, you've gone, right, I need to start looking at getting back into personal training again, because you've been out for a while at that point.
Been out for a few years at that point, yeah.
So then you've reconnected with that passion, and you've started and then after a while, you did start actually working out of a gym again.
Yes.
Doing personal training, but more from this whole integrated movement style that you've been doing with me. So then we move onwards and you start getting into other things. The meditation, is affecting you and you're getting the benefits of that. Ocean immersion is, but what brings you then to this whole idea of looking at energy medicine?
Energy medicine came in after I had separated and moved out of the house. So my marriage broke up and I had 2 little kids to look after. And energy medicine came in through a friend, actually. We did a book swap. I gave her the book on EFT and she gave me an energy medicine book, and that was where it all started for me. So I started reading the book and sort of getting curious about, what was this energy medicine thing. It felt a bit woo-woo when I first was looking at it, but the more I read the book, the more I realized how grounded it is in the body.
Yeah.
So you literally can't have an energy body without a physical body, and the other way around. So I started to realize that this was something that I wanted to look into more. At that stage, my energy was reasonable, but I could still see a lot of room for improvement in my energy, and so I wanted to explore further. Energy medicine also looks at emotion as well. It's not just so it's looking at how we've stored things in the body and looking at letting go of things that are no longer serving us,
which I think a lot of us are interested in. So that the name that we should mention in amongst all of this is Donna Eden, then.
Yes.
When it comes to any, because she's it seemingly produced an encyclopedia of a book on all of that. So you've done some courses on that as well.
So Donna Eden actually cured herself of multiple sclerosis, among other things. So she actually sees energy. So not all of us see energy, but she sees energy. So she's developed a whole system that everyone can use, whether you can see energy or not, to help people to get their energy working better. I took some of her online courses, an advanced chakra course, an essentials of energy medicine, which covers the basics of all the different systems of energy in the body. And also I took one more recently on energy medicine for women. So looking at specifically at issues that crop up for women with hormones, etc.
And you wouldn't have done that had you not have tried some of this stuff on yourself and you noticed differences on yourself. So give me an idea of, like, in the early days, what you were like testing on yourself and the results that you noticed in you and your kind of like daily performance.
Okay, so I started just with the little sequences for various things. There's energy medicine for pretty much everything, for being able to focus better, for calming down, for dealing with stress, for boosting immunity. So I started just playing with little pieces of it. I started doing a spinal flush, which is a very short 30-second little procedure every night. And I noticed that my immunity seemed to, take a little step up. I started to work with the triple warmer spleen meridian. So your triple warmer is your fight, flight, or freeze of your energy system. So to bring stress a bit more under control. And I started to experiment a little bit that with my kids and with some of my clients, just bringing little sprinklings in just to see what sort of an effect it would have. Personally, I found my digestion started to improve a lot when I started to work with the energy medicine. So it was a slow trickle that started to snowball because I could start to see how it was impacting me. And I just felt like there was a lot of potential to help a lot more people with it.
So at this point, you're a personal trainer who meditates and goes in the ocean, uses essential oils, and then is starting to realize that energy medicine works for you. So looking at the potential for how might that help your clients, and how did you start introducing that with clients, given that what they're thinking of you is they come to you to exercise and then they get that there's more to you. But how does that get introduced into sessions? That would be a kind of a...
I think gradually, I think trying these techniques on yourself is a really good place to start, because then you've got something to talk about, an experience to share. Well, hey, I tried this and I found XYZ. Would you be open to trying a little bit of it?
Okay.
There are some energy medicine sequences that almost feel like exercise. They're quite physically challenging. So you can sort of come at it from that angle as well, as a place to introduce into a session.
All right. So we haven't really spoken about what is energy, what's an energy body, what are energy meridians. You've talked to the spleen meridian there, so that each meridian has a kind of like an organ associated with it. So try and give us a flavor, like what is energy from your perspective? Because energy for us tends to be like, I have the fuel to do things, but energy is a lot more than that. So what's energy from your perspective, and what are these meridians that I've just spoken about?
Okay, so energy from an energy medicine perspective actually refers to the fact that energy flows better when things are free and open and there's space for energy to move. So we tend to have problems when there's toxic or stagnant energies that aren't shifting, that are sort of clogging up the system. So I found that fit quite nicely with the fascial perspective. As a sidebar.
Just as a side on that.
Yes.
What type of things clog up the energy system? What are you talking about?
Emotion, other people's energies. I don't think most people are aware how much they are taking on board other people's energies, and how much that can stay with you and affect you. It can actually go deep into the body and can be stored in your chakras or your energy centers of your body. These things stay with us. So it doesn't have to be big trauma. It can be day-to-day events, something someone said that upset you on some level. They all go in, and if we're not doing some conscious work to clear some of that, it can sort of start to build up and become a bit of an issue.
And it's our responsibility to do that, just like it would be. It's our responsibility to deal with our own emotions. It's our responsibility to deal with our own energy as well. Like that can't really happen from the outside, or can it? Like, if they come to you as a practitioner, then you can help them clear.
Absolutely.
Is that correct?
You can help. Absolutely. There are many different strategies with energy, and not just energy medicine, but energy healing that can help people. But ultimately, they still need to address their own mindset, because you can clear someone over and over again, but if they're not changing the way they think about things or approach life, the same sort of issues are going to keep cropping up. So
it'd be like that for any practitioner. Like, if people are going for a massage every week, well, if they did the stuff in between that didn't tighten them up so much in the first place, they could just pay once a month kind of thing, because they're actually taking care of themselves better.
Exactly. So it's still something to support you, and can absolutely be amazing at the start when you do need a bit of help to get through that sticking point. But as you start to improve, I think it's something that you do have to invest a bit of time and effort in yourself if you want to
learn it for you. Now the meridians.
Yes. So
the thing that obviously brought our heads together when you started looking at the meridians, you're like, JP, so I look at the anatomy trains, Thomas Myers anatomy trains. Should you not have kind of looked at those ever? There's these what might be called the myofascial lines. There's a series of elastic bands around the body, and the pathways that they take. Also, when I had a traditional Chinese medicine acupuncturist do some of my courses one time, and he said, well, we're doing the same thing, because the meridians that I use also follow the same as those myofascial meridians, the physical tissues that you're talking about, muscles and connective tissue. And then you say to me, well, do you realize that the meridians that I'm using as energy meridians, which are very similar to the TCM stuff, they also follow similar pathways as well?
Yeah, I got very, very excited. I'm sure there was one day that I came in and just about exploded with excitement because I was looking at them just going, they just mirror each other. Like how is this? Of course it's possible because it's all designed that way, but it's just incredible when you start to see how they follow each other so closely. And then of course, you know, my brain went to, okay, well then that's got to have some sort of effect. You've got to be able to use one to impact the other. So yeah, that's when it all started to come together for me. So
I think you show me one, and if I'm remembering rightly, and you can correct me, it's the lung meridian, the one like, so if we look at the myofascial continuity, which is called the arm line under anatomy trains, which is basically from chest, depending upon whether you're going superficial arm line or deep arm line, it'll either go from here to the fingertips. And I'm, by the way, the people that are listening to this, I'm on my pec minor tendon, all the way to my fingertips, or it goes from my pec major all the way to the ends of my fingers. And then you look at the lung meridian, it comes from like center of the pec pretty much, and then follows the same line down to the thumb.
It's deep front arm line, yeah.
So if you look at deep front arm line, which is pec minor to thumb,
yeah,
it's that.
Yeah.
Almost
exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I know that I've helped people with stuff going on with their thumb, ironically, by actually doing some manual stuff right up here in their pec minor. So now it's got me questioning, going, was it the physical tissues that I was helping there? Was it the nervous system, or was it the energy line? Or, you know where we're going with this?
Probably both.
All of them, right?
Yeah.
So now we're in this place where we go, okay, you've got this energy stuff and it's working for you and your clients. I've been teaching this myofascial meridian kind of approach to movement all this time. And then you started experimenting, going, okay, then, so if I look at my animal flow, which is very myofascial in nature in terms of the way it moves, and it moves tissues at length and along elastic band lines, then can that change your energy body and vice versa? So that's where you started playing, which was very exciting at the time, because I wasn't aware of anyone else, certainly in the animal flow community, but also in my own, that was going, okay, then I'm going to try the movement stuff to see if it affects my energy stuff. And then I'm going to try some energy stuff before I do the movement stuff to see if the movement stuff is enhanced. Tell me about what you found there.
Yeah. So, I didn't actually explain the meridians. So just briefly, the energy meridians
Apologies.
are pathways of energy that go all around the body. So there's 12 different segments to this one pathway that goes all through the body, and each one goes through a different organ or system of the body. Each meridian goes quite deep through all the organs, but we'll have acupressure points on the surface that you can access it by as well. So you're just referencing ECM.
And can you press anywhere along there, or there are
you can access
particular
the
points that work
where it comes to the surface,
wherever it's at the surface, you can
access it.
Right. Okay.
So and the meridians pathways, you can actually trace them. Your hands are electromagnetic, and it's like having a magnet in your hand, and when you trace the pathway, it's like drawing the energy along that pathway. So yeah, then I started to experiment with movement and energy. I discovered that simply tracing an energy meridian testing a movement first, and then tracing a meridian, and then retesting the movement, the shift was, it wasn't a small shift, it was a huge shift. And I've replicated that with lots of people recently, and everyone has the same reaction. So that getting the energy flowing through the system delivers energy, vitality, and strength to the organs and tissues. And so when you do that, then the physical body just opens right up.
And obviously I get excited by these things because 10 years ago, I wouldn't have just been a skeptic. I would have sent you away, right? Because it's like, well, that's not real, and that can't work, right? That's the thing. So just to let everyone know, I don't come at this from a welcoming place in a way, do I? I come to it from an extreme level of skepticism on all things that you can't, physically prove, right? So, I was open to it with you purely because I had such respect for you, but then you did some magic on me, didn't you? At times, there's been times, just to let you know, I'll give you an example. So there was a time when I had an issue, and doing something like a skater step, which would be more, it would be a little bit like, what would they call that squat that you can do? It would be kind of like a curtsy lunge, in fact, a curtsy lunge, a bit like a curtsy lunge. And there was, on one side it was a real problem, on the other side it was totally fine. I'm like, this is what, how come it's not? And I'd done all, what I would, inverted commas, call my stuff. I did some lymphatic stuff, and I also did my myofascial movement stuff. And given, I've got a mobility course that sells all over the world, and it just wasn't changing. And then you said, try putting some vibration here and here, nowhere near, and then repeat it. And I did the entire thing, full range of motion, no pain. And that just blew my mind. And then we've had a number of those since then. So Bec gives me a very knowing look when this happens, of course. but for me, it's the proof of the pudding, right? It's like, does this actually work? And what is the physical result? That because I'm very in my physical body.
Yes.
So there are physical changes that take place, and instant as well, and large.
Yes.
So you were at a conference last week, and you were able for the first time to get like a group of people that, because you're in a different country, so they didn't know you.
No.
So you're delivering these sessions at a conference. Tell us about what you saw in the room, because they were big rooms with, a good number of people. So what were you noticing? What were they noticing, I guess, is
what
the
were
question.
they noticing? They were quite surprised, to say the least. So we would do a sequence where we would use one of your tests that you do for the myofascial line. So we would test the line just to get an idea of how they were feeling in that area of their body. And then we did a sequence where we traced a meridian or an energy pathway, and also held an acupressure point for the same meridian. And then we retested the movement. And there were a lot of like, whoa, kind of comments going on. People weren't expecting.
So you were just getting them to hold a point.
Yeah.
They weren't even moving or tracing a whole meridian or anything.
We traced it first.
So you traced it, then you held a point.
And then we retested the movement, and the shift in the physical was, it was amazing. And there was a lot of like, what's going on here? This is crazy. It wasn't, like a small change. It was a massive change in their ability to move. So that kind of got their attention, I think.
So it was a range of motion change.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing it felt really different for them as well. What was
it feels, people were describing it as, it just feels really light, and all of a sudden there's an ability, there's no restriction, it doesn't feel like there's anything holding you back. It just feels like all of a sudden it's just happy to do what you're asking it to do. I would actually also note that in my experience playing with these different things, I found it seems to work better to do the energy work first, and then to ground it with working with the fascia and movement afterwards, to kind of bring it back. It almost feels a little bit too floaty when you just do the energy.
Well, that's kind of interesting, because you come at it from that angle. You came at it exercise phys, personal training, manual therapy. You came at it from a very body perspective, a physical body perspective, whereas most energy practitioners actually come at it from a much more alternative point of view, an alternative approach point of view. So I jokingly say I've become more of a hippie the older I've got, because I've learned more, right? So you kind of you expand your mind a little bit more, you're more open. But you came to it from the same place that I did.
Yes.
So your approach is actually understand and work with energy, but know that it's part of your physical body too. Whereas I feel like sometimes the people that people might describe as a bit more out there, they stay totally in the energy. Would that be how would you talk to me about that? Because I'm just trying, it's almost like I'm trying to get a handle on it on behalf of all the people that are like me out there.
Well, yeah, I absolutely came at it from the same sort of perspective that you
Yeah.
did, very much from the traditional physical perspective. I guess my health journey opened me up to other ideas
stuff.
in terms of, well, the physical alone just wasn't enough anymore. I think there's potential coming the other way as well, people coming from an energy perspective solely. I think that it has amazing benefits, but I think the grounding that you can get by tying movement into it and bringing people back into their physical body, I think that also has a really important role to play, because if you're just floating around in the energy, that's very nice, but real life kind of happens as a dance between those two rather than in one or the other. That's the way I would.
You once said it will show in your energy body before it shows in your physical body.
Yeah.
Like, explain to me again, what
So
exactly do you mean by that?
everything would show. Physical symptoms are a manifestation of what's happening in the energy body. So anything that's any imbalances going on in the energy body will be there first, and then if they're not dealt with or looked after, they will progress and you will start to get physical symptoms as a result of the fact that you haven't dealt with the energy or the emotion or whatever it may be.
And then, someone like me who's kind of like looking to, like, how do I understand the mechanisms of play and in the body and that. And so, as you know, I've also done, I've sold this other course called Brain Body Essentials, where I look at like, is another word for you, that if you haven't heard of the word interoception or interoceptors, part of the nervous system. So I know that the physical nerve endings, the interoceptors, I know that emotions are felt in those nerve endings.
Mm-hmm.
So would we say, God, this is a question. So would we say that the energy flow or the energy pathways or the nature of energy would that be the system that would create the awareness of energy as it flows in our body? That's a hell of a question. I've just thought of that on the hoof, so I don't think I've asked you that in the past.
You haven't. They're definitely all very connected. Like, for example, if you look at the hands, which are very well innovated with, 3 nervous approaches, and also then being aware that you've got 6 energy meridians ending on the fingertips and the thumb. So they're very connected. I don't think you could really separate one from the other. So yeah, I'm not really sure how to answer that.
I'm just playing in that space because you're like, when you describe the changes, that you see in people when you work with them, and it's not like you've been getting them to do a whole heap of mobility work like in between, but their movement changes enormously. Well, that's the change is being communicated somehow to their physical body from this thing that you can't see and touch, right? So I'm like, well, the other stuff that I know I've worked with in terms of what I've researched, the stuff that you can't see and touch, it seems to be that inner sensation is that interoceptive network, which is picking up on that. So I feel, I'm sure that's not even been looked at or proven or anything. I think we're just we're in new territory.
It's a great question, actually.
Yeah.
For someone else to have a look
But
at.
somehow it communicates from this energy into the physicality of the body. So there's a mechanism where that happens clearly because people feel and see the change, and I've felt it myself, and you work in it. So that's happening along the way. Is there something that if people are just listening to this and not watching us, is there something that they could try, like they could test and then do and then test again, that you can think of that would be something that you could just describe in words? Or there is?
Yep.
Okay.
So just a simple little sequence you could try just to get a sense of how much this actually does affect. You just do a little squat movement or a sit and reach kind of pattern. Just do that 2 or 3 times and just get a sense of how that's feeling in your body, where it's feeling restricted. Are you loading evenly on both feet? Those sorts of things. take a mental note of that, and then you would trace your central and governing meridians. So to do that, you can use one or both hands, and you're going to start with one hand or both down low on your pubic bone, and you're going to trace right up the center of your body until you get to your bottom lip. Do that 3 times. So start down low, trace all the way up, center of the body to the lower lip. And then you'll trace your governing meridian, which is at the back of your body. So it starts right down low on the coccyx. And you trace up the spine, all out the spine with one hand as far as you can reach. And then with your other hand, you take over that tracing, come over the top of your head to the top lip. If you can't make the hands meet in the middle, it doesn't matter. You just make the connection in your mind. Once you've traced your central and governing meridians, you'd grab your middle fingers, put one middle finger in your belly button and the other middle finger between your eyebrows. And you're going to push in and pull up at those 2 spaces. And just take 3 or 4 slow breaths there. This is to hook up the energies. So join the front of the body to the back of the body and the head to the torso. You need to stay there for about 15 or 20 seconds to hook up the energies. You may actually feel something happening in your body while you're doing that.
So that's the hookup.
That's the hookup. And then you retest that sit and reach or squat pattern. And it's quite remarkable.
I feel more relaxed from it as well.
It's a big change. So that would be a fun little, 2-minute experiment everyone could try when they're not.
Do a little kind of a pretty just kind of like a relaxed squat pattern almost, like reach forward as you're doing an air squat effectively. Do a few of those, take note of how your body's feeling toe to top.
Yep.
Then trace the central meridian, which is pubic bone up to bottom lip.
Yes.
And then the governing meridian, which is like the base of your sacrum.
Yep.
Up the back. Doesn't matter if your hands can't join in the middle.
Yep.
Bring it up, and then your hand come over all the way down the center of your face and finish at the top lip or the bottom lip?
Top lip.
Top lip.
Yeah.
Top lip there. Okay. Wow. And then you do the hookup, which is one middle finger in your belly button, one middle finger between your eyes effectively, and then you lift both for at least 20 seconds.
Yep.
All right. And don't do what I did, which I started off singling out my middle finger for the one on my face, and I realized I was giving everyone the finger on the camera. Just if you're doing it in public, that may not be a good look. Okay. It doesn't matter how zen you look, you are insulting the world. So okay, that's a cool one. I also felt a change just in my level of relaxation, just doing that, especially that hookup. So that's just a weirdly wild kind of cool thing that is.
That's the best thing about a lot of these things. They're very quick and very simple. It's deceptive. It's almost like, I know we talk about, Dr. Perry talks about also how, deceptive the 6-site lymph process is, but it's, it's a life changer. It's the same with the energy work. It's very quick little sequences that you can do, quite subtly in most situations and bring a huge shift. Yeah.
So when you now work through things, like people come to you and they've got an issue, like a limitation of some description, right? And what I've kind of really enjoyed about your understanding is in the past, I've gone, hey, look, this is going on, and I've done this and this. So I'm okay, then I've done, the lymphy stuff, I've done the mobility stuff, I've done the movement stuff, I've done the activation, I've done all these kind of different elements there. And then I'm going, okay, then. So now I'm with you, Bec, because I'm like, so there's only energy left, isn't there? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you'll go, yeah, well, that's the thing. So what I would encourage everyone out there to start thinking about is going, okay, then it's not always a physical thing that is creating an issue of some description, whatever it might be in that person. And it may actually be that you need to look at the less tangible stuff in order to come to that. But it could be a bit of both, right? It could be, like you say, we can change a physical body really easily with a myofascial mobility routine. But what if you then add this energy layer to it? So now the element we haven't really spoken about properly is I mentioned about how you were playing with animal flow and energy and like how to, so tell me about that and what was it like? How was it that you realized you were doing energy work through your movement work when it comes to those kind of practices?
I think just through experiencing it in the body, because you're accessing so many different layers and systems if you're doing all of those things together. So I started to think about what line of tissue might be on stretch when I'm doing a particular animal flow movement, and could I do something for the energy body in that area to enhance my ability to move. And yeah, really quick, simple little tricks to affect it, because then we're working with the physical body and the fascial systems of the body, which are connected to everything. And then we're also, dealing with the energy layers of the body. So bringing more range into areas that may be restricted for any number of reasons. Also, the meridians and organs are associated with certain emotions. So that brings another layer when you're working with people. To look at, yes, the physical restriction is showing up here, but okay, so what energy systems are operating in that area? What emotions might we be looking at in the person's general life that need to, be looked at a little bit more deeply in terms of bringing more change to that physical area of the body?
All right, so there's a couple of things that I want to pull out on that. Number one is, can you affect your energy system with movement? Because I feel like it's really obvious that you can do it the other way around. So so we can do a physical test to test that our physical body has changed as a result of an energy intervention, I'm going to call it.
Yes.
How do we know that our energy has changed as a result of physical?
How are you feeling?
Is it just how you feel?
I haven't sort of played with that direction as much as I have with the other
It's
one.
like, what's the test? Do you know what I mean? What's the test? Because like we've just talked about a test in inverted commas, which is a movement.
Yeah.
Then do this, then go back to that movement. There's your test, and it feels different or not, as the case may be, depending on the person, but and what's going on for them. So then how do you do the test on the energy system? That would be kind of like, is there such a thing?
Well, I don't know. I guess I haven't played with that.
You just feel more flowy and free inside. I mean, what?
I guess you could.
I feel like you'd have the sensitivity to know, but a lot of us wouldn't, because we're not experienced enough in knowing what energy might feel like.
I mean, I guess you could, the same way we would give something a physical score from 1 to 10 in terms of how it's feeling. I guess you could, if you wanted to work specifically with a particular emotion, for example, you could maybe give a score as to how that's feeling for you, and in how that feels in your body, and then do some energy and some physical interventions to help to clear that flow around that area. So for example, the liver and the gallbladder are both associated with anger. So if you're going through something that's made you really, really angry, then what can we do, from an energy perspective, but also from a physical perspective for that area of the body to create space so that energy has somewhere to go.
I mean, you mentioned gallbladder there, and as you know, I don't have one ever since about 2002, something like that.
Yeah.
And I don't know how often you must have got me to do an acupressure point on the gallbladder meridian, and it have helped me.
Yeah.
So maybe my frustration is going into other places now.
Yeah, maybe it is. Maybe your liver's shouldering more of the anger when you feel anger.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a happy person, everyone. But every now and again, I do feel frustration because I'm a human being. So yeah, that's an interesting thing. I've seen a number of people with frozen shoulder, and what I found this, and again, I came across this before I knew any of your stuff.
Yeah.
And it was I found that they had, because I spoke to them, I found that they had this thing in common, which was the majority of them, 9 out of 10, I would say, have had grief, a loss, and that doesn't mean bereavement even, but there might be loss of a friendship, or they've had a baby successfully, but it's a loss to the body, or it was a bereavement, they've lost someone, then they're grieving. And what I found is frozen shoulder and that it was almost got to the point where I was asking that as the first question: have you suffered a loss in the last year?
Yeah.
And then later on, that's when I found out, well, the lungs are
Mm-hmm.
the organ of grief.
Yeah.
And there's a frozen shoulder right on the back of the lung, right?
Yeah.
So that it was like, and then I started to have a really different understanding about the nature of the work that I want to do with it. And I treated a frozen shoulder like a grieving person. Like, I'm not going to go hard and prod and be rough and all the rest of it. I'm not going to go up and shout in its face
Yeah.
like you would someone who's just at the funeral of someone, right? So then it was the gentle movement approach, but then you layer in this energy approach and you go, okay, the lungs are the organ of grief. Well, then if I'd have known that at the time, I could then get them doing some work on the energy meridian, which would really support the physical work that I was doing, right?
Absolutely. I think you were the one that highlighted for me the connection with grief and emotion before I was doing any energy work. So we know techniques we can do for the physical organs now as well. But also, if you frozen shoulders are an absolute classic example of where the energy is happening, in my opinion, because the lung meridian starts on the chest, goes over the shoulder and down the arm. So if you think about people with frozen shoulder, the whole problem is that they can't actually lift their arm, and that's where that energy is supposed to be happening. So if that meridian is completely full and can't move, but it's not just the lung meridian that's in that area with frozen shoulder. You've got the heart meridian that comes down the inside of the arm to the little finger, and you've also got the pericardium meridian, which comes from the chest down to the middle finger. So the energy associated with frozen shoulder, I think you could, and I haven't actually had a chance to experiment with how that would go, but I just have a sense that that's going to be a huge part of what
and
is
again,
needed.
it's so practical and accessible because you're not going to upset their shoulder or give them pain as a result of doing the energy work with them to support whatever physical work you were doing. But man, when I first came across, that, for example, the first time, I'm like, great, because I'm this myofascial mobility king, right? I'm definitely gonna be able to make change. And we're doing all this thing, and in the session got big change. The day after, it just locked down even harder because it had just been insulted by me, with good intentions,
Of course.
but for me, I feel like I look back at the me of then going, I was so passionate about helping, it was almost like my ego took over. I'm like, I'm going to be able to help you, and I'm going to be the person to change things for you. And my passion, I feel like my passion turned into ego. And that's a complete aside here, everyone, but we get like that sometimes because we get so passionate about all the people that we've been able to help that actually we just go that one step too far and go, well, you're in my house now, and I'm going to be the one that can create the change for you. And that's when we've just stepped from passion into ego, isn't it? And I don't think it's ever happened to me, and I've not been kicked in the butt as a result.
I think we've all unintentionally gone there exactly as you said, in our desire to help. You see someone having all these issues and pain, and you do just want to help. And I'm sure we've all overstepped at some point in our attempt to help. I don't think you're alone there.
Because the intentions come from the right place.
Absolutely.
It's just that, it's almost like we let our enthusiasm, we get carried away with it almost. So, all right. So now we're in this place where you are using this multifaceted approach in your sessions. You're using it on your retreats, you're delivering stuff at conferences and seeing results, and everyone's experiencing results. So what is the future like? What, in an ideal world, what do you see? What type of people are bringing these things together, and how? Like, do you feel like I get this impression that your dream future would be everyone having this kind of understanding of these different elements and all of us doing it. But what is it from your perspective and in your own words?
Pretty much what you've said. I think it's just such powerful knowledge for people who work with people. I think, the more systems and layers of a human being you can work with, then it makes total sense to me that the results are going to just be so much better for that person. So I think just raising awareness of this connection and, trying to reach as many people as possible and, get them curious about it and get them to consider, having a look at it, maybe learning a little bit more about it. It's a funny one because we tend to have practitioners that tend to do their one thing, specifically around one area. And I think in terms of healing, it's definitely a multi-layer approach that is more effective. So, and I know that's challenging because some practices have very strict guidelines on what they can incorporate. So I think it's calling for more people to be willing to step out of the box and to look at more different angles to see how this all fits together, because I think the potential is just huge, not just in terms of movement, but in terms of healing. I think we can help people so much more if we can deal with those layers.
I think you raised a couple of interesting things there. Number one is I almost feel sorry for some professions because they are limited by the bounds of their professional association and insurance company.
Yes.
To doing a very narrow band of work, even if they have the awareness to do it. And that's the nice thing about exercise practitioners is we have a little bit of a broader brush, don't we? From that point of view. So, and then this idea of having more just an open mind really to going, okay, then I am amazing in terms of what I do. I'm amazing because I know everything about strength and conditioning.
Yeah.
And being so focused in that area and passionate about it that then you go, oh, energy. Oh, I don't know anything about that. But what if for some of your clients it's like it could be 50% of the party.
Yeah.
Others 10% of the party. But so the other thing I like is that you're not saying everyone has to be an energy practitioner and just do that. You're saying it's almost like an arrow that we must have in the quiver, as it were, understanding that to get a high score we have to shoot several of the arrows from the quiver with each person.
Yes.
But at no point shoot anyone with arrows.
No, obviously not. And of course you can always get a network of people around you that are good at their specific area and have cross referrals going on to support. I think there is a power though in as a practitioner trying to have a bit of a broader understanding. So even if you can't necessarily deliver some aspects, if you understand what's going on and you have a really good understanding of the person that you're working with, it's going to help you to guide them to the right next step in what needs to happen for them.
Well, it's no wonder your business is called State of Being. So am I right in thinking you've just put something like a thing together for the conference attendees, which is like a resource around this whole energy and movement thing? Did you
I recorded something last year around the fascial lines and the energy meridian. And where they cross over and how they are connected.
Am I overstepping to say your contact details will be on the bottom of this podcast?
Sure.
People are able to email you and get access to that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Awesome. Okay. I forgot to check that with you beforehand, so I was hoping that you'd say yes. You can barely say no now. Okay, so we should wrap this up, but I think I've been asking a lot of people on the podcast different things, and kind of one thing would be like, do you have a tagline for life or for your professional life or anything like that? Is there a kind of a tagline that would sum things up for you?
I don't really have a tagline per se, but I think my way of viewing things would be to be where you are and be as you are as much as that is possible. I know in some situations we can't always let it all out, whatever's going on, but be where you are and be as you are, and just to keep searching. Like, don't ever lose the curiosity. Understand that there's a universe of possibilities out there, and I just keep finding more and more things that are helping myself and helping the people that I'm working with. So just keep an open mind and keep exploring.
I love that. I think it's the perfect place to stop.
Okay.
Bec Dilizia, thank you very much for talking to us all today.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Cheers.